So the importance of a keyboard and mouse is already going away. Even as a team of developers, we barely use our keyboard now. Talk to our agents more than I ever have. We are stepping into a world now where we are not restricted or constrained by anything anymore. Computing and intelligence are going to be everywhere all the time around you, and you'll be able to talk to it by talking to it eventually through a Neuralink chip or something. But it's here already. When I need to fix something for a customer, if I have my Meta glasses on and if I can say, hey, Claude, like this is what's going on, help me out, it will do everything that I would have done in front of a computer. And then if anything, I'm able to, it's deeply integrated into the way I think and the way I work. So that's the biggest difference I think everyone will see. So I would say just get in front of that and start doing that as much as you can.
I'm Greg Forzani with Forzani Business Education, and this is the More Profit, Less Stress podcast, where we provide insights for more profit and less stress in your business now with the purpose of turning it into a valuable asset. Welcome to the More Profit, Less Stress podcast. I'm Greg Forzani. My guest today is Sutej Bhatt. So the reason we're doing the podcast today with Sutej is a couple things. Sutej is this unique blend of really understands AI, works with it a lot, and that's obviously a hot subject we want to get into. Not sure if we'll get through everything about AI today, and if we don't, then we'll probably have a follow-up podcast with him. And the first reason is, or the other reason is, Sutej has a bit of a software background, meaning he understands just the software complexity and how it all fits into a small business. And I've learned a lot through having discussions with him. So I thought it'd be really good for small business owners, our audience, to learn this. So before we get into it, first of all, your company, where you're located, what geographic area you service, like is it just local? Do you do online, like virtual, that kind of thing? And then we'll get into a couple questions.
Sure. Thank you for having me again. This is my third time talking to you on this podcast. Very, very grateful to be here. We're located in Calgary, Alberta. This is our new office. The last time we would have talked, we were still in our old setup, distributed team. We have now shifted our focus to building more of a presence here locally in downtown Calgary. And so we have our team here locally in the office now that we work with, our team of engineers, marketers, and designers. Our goal is to basically be the best friend for a small to medium-sized business and help you with any type of technology needs that you might have. There's a lot of movement in the market in the industry right now. We don't really know what the tech side of it is going to look like. But one thing that's for sure is that the industry is changing, the market is changing, the economy is changing, and the world that we knew it even as of a couple of years ago is, I don't know how long that is going to be alive and around and what essentially we focus on is building custom software. But it's not.
Before you say that, I'm gonna clarify something. The world's going to be different by the end of this podcast.
Yeah,
it's moving that fast.
If it hasn't already, that's right. Yeah, if it hasn't already changed. So we build custom software, but not in the typical sense where it's a software shop where we dedicate a tremendous amount of resources into building something custom that you have to have an in-house team to then run and manage for you. Instead, we're focusing on this idea of a composable software or API-first software. So the idea is that there's a lot of different functions in your business that could be very similar to what a completely different business in a different industry might also use, such as a booking system to have a calendar bookings, to have an online booking system, reservations, something like of that variety. But whether you're running a salon, a barber shop, or a massage parlor, you might have slightly different variations of it, but the underlying tech is the same. So we've done the hard work over the last couple of years to build 80 to 90% of these varying tech stacks with their different blocks or modules that go within it. And now our whole pitch and our proposal is that you as a small to medium-sized business, that rather than you going to an off-the-shelf software and managing yourself 10 to 15 different tools that you have to manually glue together, or the alternative being a complete custom shop. Instead, we are sort of in the middle where we run, build, and grow the tech that runs your business so that you don't have to shape and move your business processes around whatever's available off the shelf. Instead, we help you build everything according to how your business should be run. And then because of that, you don't need an expensive IT team of your own. You don't need your own resources figuring everything out. You don't need to know how the radiator in your car works, like we were talking about earlier. But as long as you know how to drive, we'll talk more about that.
So if I can say that we're actually talking about this before the podcast started, and maybe this is actually a good analogy. I was just talking to you about how I buy MacBooks instead of PCs. I switched, I don't know, a long time ago, actually. I can't remember what year. And this is now my fourth MacBook. But the reason I did it is it's just simpler to use. It was actually a long time ago. I was always having questions like, oh, my PC. I'm like, don't know how to do this. How do I figure that out? And I kept phoning a friend of mine who's like a programmer and an IT whiz bang. And he finally said to me, you got to stop calling me. He said, just go buy a freaking Mac and you'll stop bugging me because they're just more intuitive and easier to use. And I'm like, really? He says, yeah, trust me. So I went and did that. And he was dead right. I don't have to phone anybody about anything anymore. And then actually my dad went through the same thing. He was on a PC calling like, a couple times a week. And finally I'm like, Dad, you got to go buy a MacBook because it's intuitive, it's easy, and get an Apple phone as well. And then you'll stop phoning me every 3 days about tech issues because I'm not even the tech guy. So dead correct. And then my final point there and what the analogy you're getting at is I just bought one. I had to replace mine. Mine's 7 years old, just got a new one on the weekend. I literally took the old one and the new one, put them side by side. And it just prompted me to say, hey, do you want to clone the old one? I'm like, yep, like click the button. And then whatever, 5 hours later, it's done. Everything. The settings, the storage, like files, all of it, the apps.
Even your wallpaper. The exact same wallpaper transferred over. Yeah, exactly.
Passwords, like all of it is like, holy crap. So I think the point of that story is, and if I'm hearing this correctly, what you're trying to say is software and different platforms to use for different functions is complicated, right?
Yes.
And for your average business owner who, let's be honest, your average business owner should not be spending their time trying to learn that stuff. They should be spending their time operating the business, trying to figure out how to make it successful. So if that's the case, they need all the different functions they need. Yes, they need softwares to do those functions. And I think if I were to dumb down what you're trying to say from just a simple business owner's perspective, you're saying that those different functions can be, and you always use the word stack, they could be built into like a stack of softwares. And stack, I mean, kind of think about the customer's journey, right? Like the customer hears about you and then they go into a CRM thing and then they go into scheduling and then they go into manage the service and then they go into ongoing communication with the customer and payment processing and all those different things may or may not be one software, but if they're all sort of tied together and treated like one software, it makes it for the user really simple, right? Then from their perspective, it's like working with a Mac. And of course, the Mac haters are going to be like, I'm turning my podcast off here today. I'm not going to listen to this shit. But I tell you, if you haven't used one, they're super easy. Anyway, I think that's what I'm hearing, if I'm right. And maybe sort of clarify that a bit. And then if you can, go into the conversation of, let's start with the conversation of what we call a software stack. And what does that kind of mean to an average small business owner? And then from there, we can get into maybe simplifying how you sort of tie all that together and maybe then even get into you can develop one.
Definitely. You're exactly right. That's exactly the problem that we're trying to solve. According to a recent study in 2025, in the US, an average small to medium-sized business has something like 55 different software subscriptions. These are, this is basically the Netflixification, of the whole software stack, the software industry. Ever since Netflix came out with this, $9 a month very affordable software or a very affordable media plan in late 2000s, 2007 or 8. Yeah. Since then, everything moved to the subscription model, right? Everything was a subscription. So rather than these massive companies that could handle everything like SAP or Oracle, who were doing everything that we're talking about, but at a massive scale for, Fortune 500 companies, these are billion-dollar implementations. In order to bring that type of value and that type of functionality to small to medium-sized businesses, what software industry did was went Netflix route. The software companies went after solving problems, but sort of a very piecemeal type of way where here's something to, DocuSign to help you sign contracts. Here is a software like HubSpot or something to help you manage your leads that you get from Instagram or your website. And then here's a different software to do something completely different. And on top of that, you need a way to have manuals and, your standard operating procedures for your team to follow. Here's a 10th software for that. And then these are, maintenance of data that you're doing 10, 20, 30 places, all almost independently. There have been some progress recently where, for example, you can sign in with Google to your HubSpot, or you can sign in to go high level with your Google account and you can connect your calendars and stuff. But still, it's very archaic, very preliminary, a lot of manual work for you to take data between one place to another or integrate them and then keeping them all up to date and in sync. Massive headache of burden. And you're right. Rather than, it's about the ROI on your time. It's not rocket science at the end of the day. You can figure it out, but it's just such a drain of time. I think as a business owner, you'd much rather be focusing on much higher leverage tasks that are closely tied to your business, rather than trying to understand how all of this will work. Just like,
Right.
you're not worrying about how electricity gets to your building, letting the grid system handle it, or the electricity company handle it. But okay, yeah. So taking a step back from that. So our idea with that is that is how things have been done. But rather than that, what if first of all, you don't need 55 of those subscriptions. Some of those things are so small. Like one of them, I think we talked about this slightly last time. One of our coffee shop clients, they own 3 coffee shops here in the Alberta, in the Calgary area. They were paying something like, I think, $7 or $8 per employee, per staff member, across 3 locations. I think it was about 15 or 20 of them, and ended up being something like $60-$70 a month, just for having a very simple scheduling tool to make shifts and staff scheduling. And then each staff member would get their own app, and they could request shift swapping, or they could request vacation approval and all of that.
Right. So that'd be something that'd be very specific, right? That's, we need another software, and it doesn't communicate with anything else. So now we got to go open it, log in. Yeah,
that's right. And it's actually a pretty common software. It's called wheniwork.com. Give them a little shout out. They're pretty big, especially in the small local business type of world, where, like, if you own a Subway franchise, for example, and you'd quickly use something like that. That's just one example of 20 other tools that do something very minor like that. Whereas for us now, our coffee shop client, we were already building something else for them, and this was like maybe 2 hours of additional work for us, maybe a little bit more. But now this is something that's integrated into everything that we've already built for them, that they're already using. Because we are thinking about it as a sort of a modular approach, as these blocks that can be combined in any form to make a stack. It can be anything. We could start with, in the example of the coffee shop, we started with building a simple loyalty program for them. From then, we built sort of this mobile ordering app where the customers could order stuff directly in our order remotely. And then we've been adding little things here and there to make the experience better. But eventually, our goal will be to have them fully converted over, so they're not worrying about, the owner isn't, or the manager isn't worrying about how to manage tech. They're not on tech support lines figuring out their password or something. It's all managed, fully done for them, and that can extrapolate to every single other function of the business. Just like you said, from the customer journey, customer first finding out about you, to your website, to your social media, to there's tools now like something like ManyChat.com, where you set up automations on your Instagram that if someone messages you the word chat, that you get an automatic text back. And that's like another $20-$30 that as a business that you'll be spending every month as well. Again, it's something that it's just like a bullet point, like a checklist for us, that we also include that for you. But yeah, that's the general idea.
And so a couple of things. So I guess one, in theory, a small business quote and subscribe to whatever, 20, 30, 50 different softwares. Some of them have the ability to be set up to communicate with each other, and some don't. Right. And then they got to manage all that. So now the next evolution would be, I guess, one is a company like yours can help figure out how to have all of those communicate with each other in the back end. That's one evolution or option. But then still you're dealing with a bunch of different softwares. The layouts are different. Tech support, you got to phone each one if you have issues. And you're not guaranteed to be able to have all of them communicate together, right? Okay, so that is an option, and it's a decent option. But then a layer above that, or one layer better. In the old days, you just said, "Well, let's develop a software." And I come from a company where we weren't developing softwares. We were paying companies to build softwares for us. But it's in the millions and tens of millions to do that. It's so expensive. But now with AI, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but what you've been able to start to not figure out, because it's not like you created this recipe, but what your company now has the ability to do, and others like you, would be to use AI and develop some of these softwares faster, which makes it more affordable. And now, which I can't believe, actually, the small business now can actually develop their own software that does. I don't know, let's say there's 20 or 30 different softwares they're using today. You could build one that could check off 15 of those 20 under one, and you can do it for fractions of what it used to cost like 10 years ago, which to me is actually kind of mind blowing. So I know it's a complicated subject, but maybe try and maybe give an answer, maybe explain that a little bit, but without getting crazy technical. How's that possible?
So two things. Basically, so my background is in management consulting. I worked in enterprise software, implementing things like SAP and Oracle at these big companies across my clients in Canada. At the company that I worked with, Deloitte, and they have this massive network of clients. And one of the things that I learned from working in that industry was that what Deloitte did and what other companies like Accenture, PwC, TCS, what they do is they play essentially the role of a system integrator or an SI that they call themselves, that they might have for an oil and gas client, for example, we were implementing SAP, but then it needed this different module from Oracle to do their payroll because of they had just acquired a company. And then they needed something else from this other company called OpenText, which is more about information management. Essentially, the idea being that Deloitte wasn't building anything custom for them. These were massive enterprise systems that companies like Deloitte, like consulting companies, they just help them integrate them. It's a lot of manual effort and manual work. So some of these projects are 50 to 100 person, sometimes 200 person teams. There are just,
That's
if you just think about, yeah, you can think about how much value leak there is almost from where the software is. SAP is a German company, from where the engineers are sitting and designing the software, doing requirement gathering, interviewing people, what they want in the next iteration of SAP, to then the actual developers, to tens of thousands of engineers around the world that then bring those features to life, then a network, multi-billion-dollar economy of system integrators, right? So there's just so much value leak, I think, so many different touch points. What we're trying to do
I'm just going to clarify, when you say value leak, really we're saying money wasted.
Yeah, basically, right? So many hands. It's passing through so many hands and everyone's getting a little bit of cut, first of all.
Yeah.
So that's not the only reason. It's a very complex industry. It's a new industry. It's only been around for 20, 30 years in the way that it exists today. But what we're trying to do is, instead of the same idea, the same end goal and the outcome, but instead of us getting these behemoth companies, these softwares that we just either resell, just like you said, the barrier to entry for software development in general has come down a lot, in part thanks to AI, but a lot of other things as well. And we are now able to build simplified versions of a lot of these massive softwares for a much smaller scale, whether that's whether that's something in the CRM space or booking systems or something like that, or inventory management, invoicing, payments, all of that can now be built by our own team. But again, we could have built the custom software in the way it's been done. That would still be pretty expensive. So really what is bringing this price competitiveness into the market now is this idea of an API first type of business or a composable software business. So there's the same ideas, maybe just two ways to look at it. Composable software, if you think about it, is almost like Lego bricks, like this modular setup where these blocks are ready to go. You just have to take the right pieces, put them together in a stack, and that's the work that we've done. So we've done the 80 to 90% of the raw infrastructure is now set up. Now we do the remaining 10, 15%, maybe 20% work to implement that functionality into your business, into this custom stack that we build for you. But then the other way to look at it is more of like an API first company. So this is
sorry, before you go to API first, let me say back what you just said to make sure we understand. So let's say the different functions a business is looking to execute are Lego blocks. Each function is a Lego block. And what you're saying is you've been able to build a generic Lego block that will work for most industries. And then when that industry or that client comes along, you're able to take that generic templated Lego block, tweak it, specialize it for that business or industry, which takes less time, and then put the Lego blocks together into a stack, making it more affordable for that company or industry or whatever to have that customized. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly it. Just one thing I'd add to that is going back to what is the example I gave about system integrators, someone like Deloitte, Accenture. What they would do then is, first, these are very complex softwares that are now implemented in a company. That this is a multi-billion-dollar company that every minute that their system is down, it's costing them millions of dollars. So there is incentive then for them to have, either a company like Deloitte, Accenture, to have what they would call hypercare, hypersport. Like sometimes these are 15-year long agreements after an implementation that Deloitte will be looking after them for 15 years. And as you can imagine, these are very well-paid professionals. So they're not, it's not cheap. The reason that has to be done is all of this software that we've talked about up until now that's been developed has been very human first, meaning it's meant to be consumed and used through the user interface that their designers carefully designed. And now there are some established design principles. For example, there's a sidebar that sits on the left-hand side, and then there's a bar that goes at the top. And then if you need to go look at your invoicing, you would click here and then you go there. And so some of these things are now pretty common across different software. Like what a hamburger menu looks like at the top, like when you open the website in a smaller screen. Like these are just established things that now exist. But now for someone to keep maintaining them, keep them going, it's very expensive. And more importantly than that, it's still a lot of manual work, manual integration between everything. And even if you have a booking system, let's say, and a website and everything else, you're still taking information manually from one place to the other. You might have integrations that can send stuff in between, but it's still like it's a patchwork. It's like it's a forced tunnel that you almost built between these two things. And that takes us to this API first idea, that what we are now doing instead is that software doesn't need to be designed for human consumption anymore, that it needs to be API first. So it needs to be readable by code. It needs to be malleable. Ability to manipulate and make changes in the code directly by some central spot, that the central repository that contains everything. So the idea being that the first block that we would build for your company would be something called the core block. And that core block would include what type of company you have, what business you're in, who your ideal customers are, where do they live, what type of colors you use, what's your copy language look like, everything about your brand, about your company goes in there. Then when we add a website block on top of it, first of all, we're able to now directly feed the website through the back end, through the APIs, all the information that the website would need about your business. Then, of course, there's manual work that's still needed to, bring taste and creativity and vision into the end product. But now your website is connected to your core. If similar to that, if we add some sort of a marketing way for you to post content on your social media, that would just be another block that gets added to the same thing. So now when you're trying to create a new post or new idea that you're playing around with, you don't need to explain to it every single time who you are or what your brand is, like you would with maybe, like if you go to ChatGPT and you try to make an image right now, you need to remind it who you are and all of that. But now it's connected to your website. It's connected to your marketing. Then we can add a CRM block, a booking block. We can add a loyalty system. If you're your coffee shop, we can figure out a way on how to bring 10% of your customers back every single week by sending them coupons or something like that. But again, point being, everything isn't connected in one thing, and there's almost no manual work required to keep all of this, all these integrations operational. But our team is always here to keep running it, growing it, and managing it for you in the back. Whenever there's an issue, you text us, iMessage, WhatsApp, whatever works. We're like an extension of your team, and we take care of it from there. But otherwise, everything else will be set up in a way that everything is just integrated by default. There's not a chatbot that we're adding on top that can only sort of read who you are as a company. If we add a chatbot on your website or we add it to your Instagram messages or something, it's the same agent, it's the same bot that can read your inventory. It knows how to send a customer, a coupon. It's the same agent doing everything, but very well scoped, so that when he's talking on Instagram, it knows that it's a very public facing thing. And here I can only share high level information. And, maybe, a lot of different moving parts, but that's the idea, that everything is connected.
You're making me think, if I were to give an analogy to this, as you're explaining that, it's making me realize, okay, so let's look at companies like Apple or Elon Musk's companies, because I think he does a good job of this. And there's probably others I'm just not thinking of off the top of my head. But should a business be customer centric? Yes. The objective of a business is to do what's best for the customer, but at the same time, you got to create a win-win, right? Like a business has to create a win for the customer, but that win also has to be a win for the business. Otherwise, the business goes bankrupt. It doesn't work. So you can't be customer first without the business also winning. So that's a sidebar. But the point is, every business will say, I'm customer first, customer centric. I get it. But maybe what you're saying is, and maybe this is, I'm realizing as you were saying this, maybe this is what Apple and quite frankly, probably any company Elon Musk owns, maybe this is what they're so good at is they realize if we want to do what's best for the customer, we actually have to be team first, customer second, because with the objective of, yes, ultimately doing what the customer needs, making that experience, that product, that service, that whatever great. But if we're not team first, meaning if the team can't execute simply 100% without mistakes, all that stuff, then you can't be customer centric. And maybe that's what Apple's been so brilliant at. And I use that as an analogy for what you're saying. You're saying if we build software from a make it easy from the software's perspective and the team's perspective first, then you can execute really well for the customer versus going, let's think about what the customer needs. And then we'll just kind of widget it and crank it in and make lots of goofy, like, I was envisioning as you were talking there, the flow, has it got a bunch of different like elbows and little gateways for the water to go and it keeps banging into the side and the water doesn't flow right? Or are we just building the water pipe first and then figuring out how we get to the customer second? So yeah, well, look at highway systems today, right? Like, I don't know if have you ever been to Salt Lake City?
I've driven through it actually. Yes.
Okay, so it's an odd question to ask somebody, but somebody in Salt Lake a long time ago, and I think it was a fluke. My understanding is it's a fluke, but they figured out, let's make the roads really wide. Now, I think a lot of people are like, wow, Salt Lake was brilliant. Like a long time ago, before they started building buildings, they made all the roads really wide. So there's lots of room there's lots of room for parking and, bike only lanes and pedestrian lanes. And like somebody was brilliant way back in the day, but it was a fluke because they actually built it so horse carriages could pull a U-turn right in the middle of town. That was a real reason they did it. But now they're like, no, we were brilliant a long time ago and we thought hundreds of years ahead, which is not the truth. But the point is now when you look at the way people build highway systems, they build the highway systems with long future in mind, right? Like ring roads and different things where, for a long time now, for hundreds of years now, people have been building, or however long highways are being built now, I don't know roads, but maybe not hundreds of years because the first car was in like 19 whatever, right?
1910.
Yeah, something like that. So now they're building with the future in mind. So I think that's kind of what you're getting at, right? Is building, you now have the capability to build that way. You can leverage AI to do so. And you can build, let's use the word templates in the back that can be used for multiple industries, multiple clients. And then you can build a custom stack for that client or that industry. It makes a lot of sense. It makes it more affordable. And it's kind of cool because now small business can get to custom software where in the past they could I've been doing this a really long time, like being in business a really long time. And it isn't until just recently that it's only been the last maybe year or two where that's even a thing. Up until now, small business can't even conceptualize custom software. Like it wasn't even I would just tell clients, go straight to software off the shelf, pay the subscription because you just can't. And even if you can afford the custom software, it will not pay off. Like 5 years ago, right? But today that's totally changed it. Like it's a completely new thing and it's wild because to your point, you can take some of these templates you built in the back end, build the stack that's custom for that business. And then that particular industry is it'd be really good. Okay, here's an example. And this is a big time pet peeve of mine. So I might sound like I'm going on a rant, but this just effing pisses me off. I can't believe dealing with so many small businesses that have so many softwares, a couple of really basic things they can't get from the softwares. Let's say your main software that a company would operate from, not the fringe stuff, not the booking and loyalty, but the main project management or inventory management or point of sale, or it depends what the industry is and what they do, but that main software that handles the transactions of customers, et cetera. I can't believe how many of those can't get, here's a simple one, client retention report.
Yeah, that's right.
They can't run that? Or simple, in many cases, it can't even get proper gross margin reports. Or I know any inventory clients I deal with where they got to manage inventory, they can do basic inventory management there, but they can't do complex inventory management, which is super freaking important. But it's not that complicated. When you plug the formula in correctly, it does it, it'll do it for you, but they don't, because the people building the softwares today are software experts, say yourself. They're not business/industry experts like their customer.
That's right.
So they build the softwares that way, but then you get these crucial things that need to be crucial KPIs or numbers or analytics that need to be run, and the customer can't run them. And the developer's like, well, we don't do that. But if you want to do that, that's like a $15,000 modification. Like I remember I was involved in a retail store, a chain of retail stores. And I'm like, for the inventory management, they had min-max, they had forecasting, all that stuff, but none of it was the freaking way it should have been done. There's a simple formula to figure out, like, as an example, I want to know how many to order based on my history, and I want to choose the history. I want to choose how long the history is, and I want to choose how long I need to have stock for, and I want to take those two numbers and I want to subtract what's on order and order the difference. And that's a super simple formula, but I've yet to bump into a software that has it calculated into it. So then it's a modification. So in your case, and sorry, this is a rant, but this is really viable. In your case, they can say that, and you can add that, and it's not going to be a $15,000 modification. Like
that's right. Yeah.
You can tweak it specifically for that industry because in theory, that business owner should be an expert at what they do and should know that thing they need, whatever that function is.
That's right. And it's their own app that we're building for them, right? So one of my clients here, their name's Tires on the Run here in Calgary. Their app that we built for them, we're calling it Thor, like THOR. That's the name that the owner picked. But it's everything's in Thor. It's not a second, third, fourth thing. So whatever extra features they wanted or asked for, it's just now in Thor. It's all built in. So absolutely. And then, sorry, going back to what you started this with was taking care of your team and your internal processes and everything. That is so evident when you're dealing with a business that has their stuff together and it has proper operating procedures and processes documented. If you look at someone like Apple, you just went there to get your MacBook. But even when you go back to, if you have some sort of a hardware issue or you need to go back for warranty or repair or something, you'll notice how much effort Apple as a company has spent into giving their employees that have boots on the ground the right tools and the right mechanisms to get to the bottom of almost all issues. Things that we are built into our iPhones, but we would never see them until there's an issue, we got there, and then they had to run a diagnostic tool or something. They can do all of it through these custom iPod Touch looking devices that Apple has built for their employees. They're able to get to the bottom of so much in your phone, and all of that is just simply to get to the outcome or the decision way faster than having to get your phone, send it back to a factory where, so exactly right. So just so much amount of thought goes into it that now every time I have an issue, I don't even mind going to the Apple store because I know 15 minutes later I'm going to walk out a happy man. Right. And so that's a big part of it for sure.
Yeah, it's actually cool. So I want to get into an AI discussion in 2 seconds, but I think just to summarize what we've talked about so far, the reason I thought it was important to talk about that is to help small business understand, because for us, a big passion is small businesses just getting their ass handed to them by corporations, and they need a fighting chance, right? So one thing for sure now is this whole discussion we just had. And I guess the real point of it all is like, this is at the fingertips of small business. It's right there. It's really cool. It's never been there before, ever. Like small businesses never had this opportunity before or this capability.
And just to give some context on the actual scale and the magnitude of the numbers that we would be talking about, I was just telling you about this last week, Greg. One of my clients that I was just talking to, they're a medium-sized business. They're one of the larger tire suppliers in Canada. And, they're based out of Quebec. We just talking to their main tech guy, and they said just last year they spent $50 million in building, and not even building their own software. They implemented SAP. So they paid someone like Deloitte, Accenture, someone like that to pay $50 million to have that implemented. And now they have an internal team that manages it and runs it for them. It's very expensive still. I personally worked on projects here in Calgary in some oil and gas companies that their total budget was well over $300 to $400 million. And then my last project that I worked on, it was a 15 to 20 year long engagement, which included 2 years of requirement gathering, 5 years of development, and then 10 years or something of hypercare after. And that was $2 billion plus Canadian dollar project. And that was just SAP. I'm sure there were some other things in there, but that's the scale that we're talking about. And what on the flip side, in the small business world, the numbers that we're talking about now are a few hundred to maybe a couple $1,000s a month. Like it's a fraction of what the alternative would have been a couple years ago.
Wild. It's absolutely wild. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so that leads me to the question of, and as I'm about to ask this, I'm realizing this is such a big, hot subject on the planet right now, and it's changing by the minute, which is AI. So I would actually love to do a follow-up podcast to this just on AI, but let's hit high level right now because it's a hot subject. It's changing. People want to know more. I guess let's first kind of talk about AI and how fast it's moving. And actually, I'd appreciate if you could share the way you explained AI to me before about, like, it doesn't in theory kind of think for itself. It's there's guardrails put on it for where it's going to go look for information, pull the information. If you can kind of expand on that. And this is what I enjoyed about what you told me. You gave me information about AI that I hadn't heard anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So if you can maybe just give a different perspective on AI so you don't just regurgitate the same stuff everybody's already hearing from everybody else.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me just give you a little bit of a lay of the land. That what 90% of the people have exposure to is just the very top line, like the most controlled version of AI, which is directly through chatgpt.com or going to Claude.ai or Grok or whatever it might be. These are the most controlled experience where these the frontier labs like Anthropic and OpenAI, they've done a tremendous job at putting guardrails around what their model is, what their agents are able to say and what they're not, and they're very good now at not getting tricked or not. You can ask things like, "I'm taking my car to a car wash. Should I walk? Should I drive there or should I walk?" A couple, even up until 6 months ago, they would just say, just walk. You don't need your car. It's only 2 kilometers away. But now, so it's getting very smart now. Where now it has been like, duh, you need your car to get a wash. So minor things like that. But then that's just the first category of AI that I guess most people are familiar with. The second one after that is maybe something like Claude Cowork or Claude Code or OpenAI's Codex. And these are not a little bit, actually, they're quite a bit less restricted than what you have through these public chat interfaces. Claude Code or Codex, when you're running these on your computer, you're basically giving it a root level access to your computer. It's still very safe. It still does a very good job at asking you for permission that Claude is trying to access your downloads folder, allow or say no. And then if you want, you can give it, skip permission or auto mode that it doesn't need you to ask you for anything. So there's that. And then the third thing is the most unrestricted and the most, I think, so where the most amount of development is going on right now is probably the third thing. And that's a completely unrestricted agent or some sort of agent setup on your computer that just runs in the background without any constraints, without any oversight. So that is you yourself or some of the audience might have heard of OpenClaw. So OpenClaw is this open source project that OpenAI now acquired, but they're still keeping it open source. So what that is you can just download the repo from GitHub for this package. You install it on either your own computer, a Mac, or you can install it on a virtual private server somewhere. And then you download Telegram, Slack, or WhatsApp or something to it, and then you are able to talk to your agent, not directly like talking to chatgpt.com, like you're not typing it in some interface. But now this agent actually lives on this device wherever you've installed OpenClaw. And OpenClaw is just there's many other alternatives, but that's one of them, the most popular one right now. And there, then you're able to, for example, you're able to talk to him and talk to your agent and ask it to, monitor your emails or people are using it for sales. Actually, one really cool example I saw of this was someone who runs a pool company in Florida. He set up an OpenClaw setup to simply go look at every single house on Google Maps in the area that doesn't have a pool, then gave it agent some instructions to figure out how to download 3D models from Google Earth, then figure out how to draw like an illustration of what a pool would look like there, and then draw like a drone flyover over top of that. It would then put together a package, send a postcard to the homeowner with a QR code that they could scan and actually look at their photos. And then this guy, within a week, he closed $500,000 worth of deals, letting his OpenClaw do that. That's not something ChatGPT Claude could have done.
You said OpenClaw, right?
Claw, like
Claw.
CLAW.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So OpenClaw. So that's just sort of the high level lay of the land. Where we operate the most is in the second and the third tier, I think. So like Claude Code, Codex, Gemini, CLI, these are things that we use every day in our development. But now what we are doing more and more is the third thing, which is these agents, running them and setting them up in some sort of environment. We are using a lot of like VPS servers. So I have actually one agent here running on my Mac Mini that I'm talking to you on right now. And then we have a couple other agents in the cloud, but our goal with that is so that they can all collaborate and help us manage our customer feedback issues. Like, so for example, if Greg, if we build something for you, something's not working, you text us in an iMessage group. Our goal is to have an AI agent in that group that lives in the cloud, but it has access to your software and knows exactly what we've built for you, what isn't working, what it is. And then before I even look at it or before our team looks at it, there's a full diagnosis that's already done and there's a recommended approach on how this should be fixed. And that's just the way we are setting it up, but there's unlimited directions we can go from here.
Wow. It's crazy. Okay. So actually we should do another podcast on this because I think I would love to expand on that conversation and maybe just help people with, I guess one option is they can reach out to your company and say, hey, can you hold my hand through this? Because they're like, what'd you just say? And another option is you could probably give some tips as to how they could get into that, kind of wade themselves into that pool, no pun intended. Okay, so next question. What are some, like, let's say, I'm going to say tips, but let's go more detailed. Let's say, what are some do's and what are some don'ts for small business owners with AI? Like what are, and without giving the standard answers that they're hearing on, social media right now and stuff, give them, like you just explained something I think a lot of people probably haven't heard before. So what are some do's and don'ts advice you could give to small business owners with AI right now? Which, by the way, an hour from now, those do's and don'ts
might be outdated. Yeah. But one of the things I would say is there's a lot of short-term arbitrage opportunities that people are trying to capitalize on right now, trying to, let me set up an OpenClaw for you. And I talked to some of them, they're charging $20,000 for them to set up the OpenClaw setup in our company, which we already had, but I just wanted to know how much they were charging. So there's a lot of stuff like that happening. So first of all, I would just say some caution that you don't jump on every opportunity that you get, especially if they're promising you the world that let us install OpenClaw and then your company will be running itself starting tomorrow. There's some truth to that, but it's not going to land unless you understand it yourself. So I would say just getting as educated and as informed about it as possible. And we are in such early stages of this. I have to remind myself this multiple times a day that sometimes I feel like I'm behind, like something new just was announced yesterday and I still don't know about it. But there's the more and more that I now talk to people, I'm starting to realize that we are such an early time in this whole journey that 90% of the people that are even talking about AI, they don't. It's not really right. It's not accurate. It's a very liquid field right now, moving very quickly.
It feels a whole lot like business advice world, like my industry. Like, it's sorry, I'm not. What I'm about to say, I don't say to self promote. What I'm about to say, I use as an analogy to what you're talking about because I want to drive the point home of what you're talking about because there's a very relevant analogy here. And the analogy is this, like it wasn't that long ago, 20 years ago, business failure rate in North America or the world was around 80%. And everybody's heard that, just about every business owner's heard that statistic, 80% fail. And the definition of failure is close or go bankrupt. Well, fast forward to today, the number, and I'm writing a book on this, the number is now 90 to 95%. So we've gone from 80 to 90 and 95% failure. We're going the wrong direction. Yet, in the last 20 years, there's more business coaches, mentors, advisors, whatever words you want to use. There's more curriculums out there you can attend. There's more seminars and courses you can go to. There's more TED Talks. There's way more books. So the failure rate should be dropping, but it's not. It's going the other way. So my point about that is not all advice is good advice. And I think if I were to use that as a factual thing, because what I just said is fact, and compare that to what you just said, you're kind of saying the same thing. We got this new hot industry AI, all this advice, but maybe not all this advice is the right or good advice. Maybe what you're saying.
I agree. Yeah, 100% agreed with that. And I think one thing to add to that, I would say there's a lot of maybe even, confusion right now. It's just such a new frontier that people don't understand it yet. There's a lot to unlearn from how we've been running business, how software has worked, everything before. One thing that I would encourage everyone to do is, rather than, you'll see a lot of people on Instagram right now, like trying to teach you how to make content using AI, how to generate graphics and all that. It's great to learn all that, but not in isolation. Like if you were trying to just find how to make content with AI, you'll probably get there, but you will then just know how to do that one thing with probably specialized tools that were built for you to do that, like Magnific or Higgs Field or something, where these are AI platforms only for content generation. I think you're still kind of missing the point when you're doing that, because you're just trying to do one very specific function, doing it in a very human first way, but trying to use AI to fast forward or skip through some sections. That works, it's fine. But what I think would be a lot higher leverage is understanding how all of that can be done in a machine first way. What I mean by that is, this might not make sense right now, but there's an API first thing. The whole idea here is that everything is in code. So for example, now when we're making our content for our Autograf, for example, for my company, we're trying to make it not in Canva, not in Higgs Field, not in Magnific, not in Photoshop, but in a way so that Claude and our other agents can actually give us the designs in HTML, which is like a web page, like a website. And because it's making it in HTML, it has granular control over everything. Like it knows if I wanted to change how round one of the corners of a box is, it can do a surgical strike, just on that one thing, and nothing else gets changed. Whereas when you are using these AI tools, you're basically asking them to create you a photo, an image. Every time you're asking it for revisions, it's going through that whole process again. And often you'll find that you ask you to change one thing, you're happy with it, but you make an adjustment somewhere else, it'll change something else completely unrelated.
I just went through this. What you're talking about right now, I personally experienced last week. Change this one little thing, change the whole freaking, why? I'm like, I got mad. I'm like, why did you just do that? I just wanted the little thing changed. So yeah, what you just said actually happens. It's good.
I get it. Yeah. And I deal with that all the time. So instead, what we are doing now is everything is code first. So now when we have proper workflows in place, and we're not there yet, but when we have proper workflows in place, we can say it to our agent, I want to promote, website development this month for my company. Let's make a campaign for 50% off. That will include making me a coupon code that my customers can go to the checkout page and enter that coupon code. But also I need Instagram posts, I need a blog post, I need a LinkedIn article, and all of that go. Because if I were to say that to ChatGPT right now, it'll try to do something, but it won't be accurate. It'll hallucinate, and it won't know who my company is without me having to talk to it. Whereas now, because we've set everything up in a way that our agent or code base can read and interpret easily, there's no translation required from human to machine. Like our agent can just read all that data and put together all the things that we discussed. So not live yet. Maybe next time we talk, I'll give you a demo of this.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. We're going to have to
So just to recap, idea being that rather than like learning specific things, I think it's better to understand the lay of the land on how all of this works together. We're so early. You are going to be ahead of the entire world if you can learn this over the next few months to the next, maybe even a couple of years.
Wow, good tip. Okay, anything as we wrap up here? What other any other simple do's and don'ts, like just habits you see people doing with AI that you would suggest? Maybe do this instead, or
I would actually. One thing I would say is, rather than just using ChatGPT or Claude, like the three tiers that I spoke about, that the most controlled version of that is using ChatGPT or Claude. Especially if you're using something like the voice mode there, where you just turn on the voice mode and you talk to it, and in real time it's replying to you, understanding your context and all that. So it's like, please experience all that, understand how all of it works. But then I think it's a good mental exercise to understand how much is going on there. So first you're talking into a phone. So ChatGPT is taking your audio, transcribing that into text, sending that text to be converted into tokens. That gets processed, inference, all that happens. It gets a response back, which then gets sent to their voice engine, which then says it back to you. All of this is happening in milliseconds. But if you were to, like, you have the entire, that's like probably 20, 30 different steps and there's things that are going on, but all of that is in OpenAI or Claude or whoever you're using. It's in their hands. What I would say, I think would be a good way to understand for everyone is to just think about in your mind, how many smaller pieces could you break that into? So for example, now when we're running our agent, we are saving about 50 to maybe 60% of our cost by not letting our agent do the transcription of the audio. I still want to talk to it. I still want to do all of that. But rather than having our agent do that, I have an app on my phone that I pay like $10 a month for or something. And that's just for now because they're really good. It's called Whisper Flow. And what I do there is because I'm talking on, it's running on my device. I talk to it and the transcriptions is actually happening on the device. So by the time the text even gets to OpenAI or ChatGPT, I've already cut down 50% or 60% of my cost. And then there's so many ways you can break that down even more and have full granular control over everything. And that's what I'm trying to build right now and what I'm trying to learn.
That makes a lot of sense because last week I was doing something using Claude and I got right to the last version of change I needed. And I got the message, you got to wait until this time tomorrow to finish your job. I'm like, really? But I'm realizing through this conversation, the reason that happened is two things you said today. One, what you just said, I was giving it this big explanation. So it was thinking and calculating and asking me a question, interpreting and blah, 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 blah. So that took a lot of usage, which was wasted. And then the second piece is I was like, fix that little corner or that thing right there, and it would redo the whole thing. And when it redid the whole thing, it changed other things. I'm like, I didn't ask you to change those other things. I liked them the way they were, and they would change it back. And then, so I got like 16 versions when I just needed 2. I needed the first one and the fixes. That's it. So I lost credits there. Then now I walked away from that situation, told my wife, I'm like, it does this on purpose because it wants to upsell you. Like, I know it's doing it on purpose. I'm sure. Like, I'm positive on the back end, they're making my life simple by saying, just tell us everything and we'll do it. And then fix. You need more credits, more okay, I got to spend more, bump up. So it's a smart tactic on their behalf. For sure. If they're doing that on purpose, which I assume they are. So that's actually what you just said is super good advice for people. Like, I totally get that. And that's not something I've heard anywhere else. Nobody else has talked about that. So that's actually really good advice.
One last thing I'd say, and this might be the most important one. You'll start seeing this change everywhere over the next couple of years. And we even, I think, touched on this last time, but I'll quickly recap that up until now, we've been restricted and constrained on how we interact with intelligence and computing by these borders. Like, there's a screen has borders around it, and that's the only way we can see what's going on and only way for us to input or output. And then the only way we've been able to give our command has been by using a keyboard, by writing, or by using a mouse and a pointer. All of that is coming to an end, and it's happening. It's going to happen like this. That first of all, natural language is already here. We're already talking to ChatGPT and Claude and everything via audio, through audio. So the importance of a keyboard and mouse is already going away. Even as a team of developers, we barely use our keyboard now. Talk to our agents more than I ever have. I don't think I've typed a word. Just this year alone, the app Whisperflow that I was telling you about, I downloaded it in January. And since then, I've spoken almost 300,000 words into it. I would have never typed that many words. Never, not in a million, no, not in probably the last 5 years combined. And so first of all, there's that. The I/O, the input-output is going to be simplified from writing and typing to just talking. So for someone like me, I think the best when I'm walking. So walking and talking has just completely changed my life. And then the second thing to that is, as Meta glasses and Apple Vision and while the AR VR gets more popular, we are stepping into a world now where we are not restricted or constrained by anything anymore. Computing and intelligence are going to be everywhere all the time around you, and you'll be able to talk to it by talking to it eventually through a Neuralink chip or something. But it's here already. When I need to fix something for a customer, if I have my Meta glasses on and if I can say, hey, Claude, like, this is what's going on, help me out, it will do everything that I would have done in front of a computer. And then if anything, I'm able to it's deeply integrated into the way I think and the way I work. So that's the biggest difference I think everyone will see. So I would say just get in front of that and start doing that as much as you can. It's going to be computing everywhere. You're going to be wearing a pendant. When you get a phone call, it'll have a little projector that'll show on your hand. You'll just hit answer, and then your glasses will automatically just have a bone conducting microphone and then speaker that you'll just hear from. So everything connected everywhere all the time.
So should I send this laptop back?
Yeah, I think so. I think you might
half
have
of the
to.
laptop's a keyboard.
That's right.
Will it be half the price if there's no keyboard?
That's basically what this is. That's why I downgraded to an iPad, basically, that I can, whenever I don't need this keyboard, I can just use this. Right. But it's exciting times, man.
That's good advice. I love it. You just gave us do's and don'ts, little tips that I haven't heard other people talking about. So that's awesome. Very cool. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. As always, very insightful. I think our listeners are going to walk away with some good information. It's fantastic. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
If anybody needs to reach out to Autograf and ask for help, how do they reach you?
So my name is Sutej, Sutej, as it says there, and Autograf is spelled with an F. So it's just Sutej at autograf.ca. You can send me an email, or autograf.digital on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. You can just find us there and send us a message. Go from there. We have a lot of exciting things in the works. If you have your audience and listeners, even if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm sure we'll both learn something from each other.
Cool. Thanks, my man.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening to the More Profit, Less Stress podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform and leave a comment or review, as it helps with the algorithm. To learn more about us and what we do, check out our website. Until next time, go make it happen.